Good morning, friends. Don't you feel like singing together? A lot. I invite you to rise in body and our spirit. We're going to sing out of the great hymn book, Holly Near's great song of resistance, We Are a Gentle, Angry People. And if you're online, you can find the lyrics posted in the lyric sheet. There's a link there, and the lyrics will be projected up here. And don't forget to look at me once in a while. I'll smile at you. Here we go. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing for our lives. And we are young and old together, and we are singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing for our lives. Yes, we are a land of many colors, and we are singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing for our lives. Yes, we are all in this together, and we are singing for our lives. We are all in this together, and we are singing for our lives. Yes, we are a gentle, loving people, and we are we're singing for our lives. Oh, we are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing for our lives. Yes, we are.
Good morning. Welcome to the Olympia Unitarian Universalist Congregation. As those Holly Near lyrics reflect, we are a community that celebrates diversity and believes we are all enriched by the gifts that each of us brings. We gather as a people of many genders, sexual identities, racial identities, economic levels, and all the ways that we are unique. We are all growing and becoming, and we learn from each other. Take a moment to notice and acknowledge those sitting around you or on the screen. You belong here, just as you are. Thank you for choosing to join us today. My name is Ann Colbury. I prefer she, her pronouns, and I'm a member of the worship arts team. I'm an older woman with shoulder-length dark hair, wearing a dark blue sweater and a blue and white scarf. Leading worship online today is our minister, Reverend Mary Gear, as well as Troy Fisher, our music director, and Reverend Sara Lewis, our director of community and faith development. Here are a few things to know about our service today. We are streaming live on Zoom and YouTube, and the service is being recorded. For those here in the sanctuary, you can follow along by reading the mostly accurate subtitles on the screen in front, and on Zoom if you're online. We are a multi-generational community, and we welcome all ages in the sanctuary. Nursery care and a story program for children are available in the classroom wing down the hall. Over here are soft chairs and activities for busy hands, so everyone can feel supported. Please be where you will feel most comfortable. We're grateful to everyone helping to make worship happen this morning, both visible and less visible. Thank you to all who contribute in so many ways. I'd like to make a special shout out to Anissa Bentlamsani, who has taken on the creation of the weekly Order of Service, an extremely detailed document with complex formatting and ample opportunities for errors, but which she executes with precision. Thank you, Anissa. Yeah. After the service, everyone will have the chance to discuss the 2 reflection questions offered by Reverend Mary in the Order of Service. If you're online, we invite you to go to a breakout room for a virtual chat. For those here, please stay for coffee and connection in the Commons. At 12:15 today, please join us again here in the sanctuary or back in the main Zoom room for a forum on success stories in congregational engagement with Reverend Sara and others. This year, we are highlighting ways for you to engage at OUUC. This week's opportunity is the Emergency Preparedness Team. This team plans for the most likely emergencies that may happen at church and provides assistance when needed to safeguard all events at OUUC. The team would love new members, and no prior experience is needed. Please stop by their table in the Commons after the service to learn more from some of their members. This afternoon at 2, our new UU class on Zoom will be How and Why We Worship with Reverend Mary. We will discuss our worship practices and the liturgical year. All are welcome to join this class. Please find the Zoom link on the website, or you can email the office to have for the link. There are many things happening at OUUC. Please check the Tuesday electronic update or the OUUC website for the most current information. If you like, you can sign up in the office to have the weekly updates sent to your email address. Now let us pause, take a few deeper breaths, settle our bodies, and open our hearts and minds as we prepare to worship. It is good to be together. This morning, we join Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world in lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith tradition, with these words of Reverend Michelle Collins. Welcome to this place, a place where hope can be nourished. In a world that profits from despair, our gathering is a declaration of faith. We declare that joy still rises, that kindness still matters, that hope is not dead. We come to remember we are not alone. May our time together restore us to wonder, strengthen our resolve, and return us to the world as bearers of hope that sustains the work of resistance.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Mary, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm joining you from home today because the bug that's going around caught up with me yesterday. So this is one way that I can take care of me and take care of you. I'm delighted to join the folks who are online, some of you every Sunday. It's wonderful to see your faces. Thank you for being here. Today, part of what I'm going to talk about is accepting the limits of our bodies. And I just want to name that it is the irony of this circumstance is not lost on me today. I want to thank my fellow worship leaders for accommodating this and allowing me to be present virtually today, and Reverend Sara Troy, and especially Carbon, who makes the magic happen. Thank you. Our opening words today are offered by the Reverend Karen Johnstone. Inexplicable. How we rise each morning instead of burying our heads under the bed covers, sewing them shut. Why we keep on welcoming babies with bone-deep joy to this sordid world. How we fill burlap sacks with grit and gratitude, our hands shredded as we drag one over the other. How we refuse the daily pull toward greedy dark, keeping at least one toe, some of us whole torso, in the light. Inexplicable. It's just the way it is. There is no other way. Stumbling every time, practice or no, just part of the bargain. The unavoidable, intractable, inexplicable bargain. Come, let us worship together.
I invite you again to rise in body and spirit, and let's sing hymn number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath.
Good morning. The story that I have for you today may seem a bit familiar. There are many versions of this story out there. It's been adapted in several ways. This is the original version. One day on a beach, much like a beach that you might be familiar with, a person went walking. The walker was tired, weary from the weight of the world and life. But this practice of walking on the beach was always helpful. It was a very low tide day, and so this walk went on parts of the beach that were usually covered with water. It was sort of a mud flat situation. You might be familiar with the mud flats. So it was a bit of a squishy, suck your shoes off your feet kind of walk. And as the walker continued, they saw up ahead something sort of strange. There was a person on the beach who was bending down and picking things up and then throwing them into the water. What were they doing? The walker wondered. Were they maybe one of these collectors who, looks all around the beach for things, pretty things to take home? Once they got close enough to see what the thrower was picking up, they realized that they were starfish. In fact, there were a whole bunch of them on the beach that had become stranded because it was such a low tide. Some of them were not doing well at all. They appeared to be dead. Others were, trying to pull themselves out of the mud. The walker got close enough to speak to the thrower and said, "Oh, are you a collector?" "No, only like this," said the thrower, "only for the living, those that I can help." And the thrower again bent down to pick one up and throw it into the water. "I've given up on collecting," said the walker. "I realized that in the end, only death is the best collector." Said the thrower, and again picked up a starfish and threw it into the water. With this interaction done, the walker continued their walk. But they couldn't stop thinking about the star thrower. This practice of picking them up, of helping those that could be helped. The walker realized as they thought about the thrower that the thrower was in relationship with the starfish and with the beach in a way that the walker had ceased to be. In fact, the thrower was in relationship with life and the universe in a way that the walker had given up being in relationship. And that night, the walker had an extraordinary dream. In this dream, the stars in the mud were actual stars, including our own sun, stuck there in the mud and dying. When some unknown hand bent down and scooped it up and threw it back into space where it should be. Waking up from that dream and from these thoughts, the walker knew what they needed to do. They went back to the beach. It was low tide again, and the thrower was again there, throwing starfish into the water. "I'll join you," said the walker, and also began to pick up starfish and throw them. And as they did, they thought, now we are together. And when we are gone, others will pick it up. Those who remember that they are part of a great circle of compassion from life to death and life again. Thus ends our story.
Sunday, we engage in the two spiritual practices of generosity and gratitude by joining together in service to this community and to something greater than ourselves. This is a weekly opportunity to express gratitude for life, our network of relationships, and this community. Each of us has the power to share, and when we combine our gifts to create this offering, we are able to do more than any one of us can alone. If you are new or just visiting us, you are our guest. But if you are moved to participate in this offering, what you share will be accepted with gratitude. Our offering does two things. Half helps support the ongoing work of this congregation, which is also supported by our regular pledges. The other half of our offering is given to charity. Most is shared with an organization that serves our greater community in harmony with our UU values, and a small portion goes to the OUUC Minister Benevolence Fund to support urgent needs in this community. The offering collected on January 11th was for the partner church ministry to help support our partner church in Kosholamos. Your generosity is allowing us to send $915 to help students attend high school outside the village. Thank you for your generosity. Our Share the Plate organization for January and February is Homes First. In the past 35 years, Homes First has provided safe, clean, stable, and affordable homes to more than 5,000 community members with very low and extremely low income. Homes First work includes making emergency repairs to uninhabitable housing units, covering operating expenses during this revenue shortfall, maintaining current program and services, and covering compliance and safety upgrades. OUUC's attention and support will truly make a difference in supporting their good work. We offer thanks to everyone who shares, including all who support this offering electronically. You can find out how to do that, both in the order of service and on the OUUC website. May the offering now be generously given, as it will be gratefully received.
Thank you so much for your generosity in all the ways you share your many gifts. This is a time of worry and fear, and also a time when we experience joy and beauty and celebration. And so we come into community this morning bringing all that is in our lives, on our minds and in our hearts. So let's open our hearts to the complexity of life as we place stones in the water of community. We'll hear a drum beat. I invite you to allow its resonance into your body. It's the heartbeat of life, the heartbeat of community. Right now, I invite you to take a deep breath in and out, air that nourishes your body. Feel the earth solid beneath us. Feel the warmth of connection in all the ways we connect today. And once again this week, we extend our love and care to the people of Minneapolis as violence by government agents continues. We mourn the death of a second activist, Alec Preddy, who was killed by ICE agents yesterday. Minnesota is the most recent flashpoint for resistance to the cruel and inhumane authoritarianism that is in our government and our country right now. We send our courage and strength to those who are setting a limit, showing up in community to say, no, not here. May we continue to proclaim our values here in Olympia and all around the nation. An opening circle, our circle wide. For those who are on Zoom with me, I invite you to share from your heart in the chat as we witness the sharing of each other, and it's shared on the screen in the sanctuary so all can see it. And for those who are on site today, I invite you to come to the front of the sanctuary if there's something you'd like to bring into this community. You may place a stone in the water as you hold your sharing in your heart. So let's hear the heartbeat of our community as we reach out our hearts in love and care to all who share today. We'll place a stone in the water for all that has been shared here online, shared from the heart. And one more stone placed in the water for all that we hold in our hearts and that remains unspoken. We hold together all that has been shared. May you feel yourself witnessed. May you know that you are loved. I invite you to settle in wherever you are now. Find a comfortable position that supports your ability to breathe. These words are from the Reverend Lynn Unger. Breathe, said the wind. How can I breathe at a time like this when the air is full of smoke, of burning tires, of burning lives? Just breathe, the wind insisted. Easy for you to say, if the weight of the injustice is not wrapped around your throat, cutting off all air. I need you to breathe. I need you to breathe. Don't tell me to be calm when there are so many reasons to be angry and so many causes for despair. I didn't say to be calm, said the wind. I said to breathe. We are going to need a lot of air to make this hurricane together. Let's breathe as we hold a moment of silence together.
I invite you to remain seated, and we'll sing together, Be Still and Breathe. Be still and breathe. Be still and breathe. Listen to heartache. Listen to grief. Be still and breathe. Be still and breathe. Listen to gladness. Listen to joy. Be still and breathe. Be still and breathe. Listen to anger. Listen to hurt. Be still and breathe. Be still and breathe. Listen to beauty. Listen to grace. Be still and breathe. Be still and breathe. Listen to you. Listen to me. Be still and breathe. Be still and breathe. Be still and breathe. Be still.
Today's first reading is an excerpt from a reflection by Unitarian Universalist minister Reverend Gretchen Haley, published in 2015 in response to violence in our nation. These times ask us to be what Martin Luther King Jr. called creatively maladjusted. These times ask us to see and name what is not right, what is disordered in the world, and refuse to believe it is normal or acceptable or moral, and instead to believe that we are meant for something else, to expect peace, equality, and mutual respect for everyone, including ourselves. And these times ask us to come together in our congregation as part of what UU Minister Rebecca Parker calls a community of resistance, which she defines as countercultural habitations in which people learn ways to survive and thrive that can resist and sometimes even transform an unjust, dominant culture.
Resisting Limits, Part 1. While I was in seminary, I served as a very part-time contract minister for the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of McMinnville, Oregon. When I started there in the fall of 2015, the fellowship was about 8 years old, and the membership was 45 people. They'd never had a minister before, and some members were very worried about what that change might bring. But the lay leaders were weary, wanting someone to help them develop this fledgling congregation in the middle of Oregon wine country. And so, I was an experiment. It was an experiment for all of us. I was starting to learn that worries about power and change are common in UU congregation, and experiments were a useful tactic to help address this worry. In that fall of 2015, I led the congregation in a ritual to explore the changes they'd experienced and their worries and grief and hopes. And in that ritual, I invited people to write on a note card what was on their mind and in their heart, and then I read them aloud, no names, just heartfelt sharing. I used those cards to craft some of my services for the fellowship before I left them in the summer of 2016 to go complete my chaplain training. I was learning that change and the resulting grief is also a common concern in congregations. Now, one of those cards from that ritual spoke to me, and I have carried it with me, taped to the front of one of my journals. It looks like this, and it says, "The heartbreak of accepting limits." Something in those tender words touched me so deeply that I kept the card, knowing that one day this idea and the grief expressed would blossom in some way. And here we are, at a UU congregation in Olympia, Washington, just over 10 years later. When I reflected on the January spiritual theme of practicing resistance, the image of this small card came to me. The push and pull of accepting and resisting limits is part of our lives and can be so hard to make meaning from. The complexity of limits is perhaps why this sermon needed to percolate for almost a decade. In our reading, the Reverend Gretchen Haley reminds us of our work in times such as these. Even though she wrote her words in 2015, at about the same time that I was leading that ritual in McMinnville, they are no less true now. She wrote, "These times ask us to see and name what is not right, what is disordered in the world, and to refuse to believe it is normal or acceptable or moral. and instead to believe that we are meant for something else, to expect peace and equality and mutual respect for everyone, including ourselves. Justice work is all about not accepting limits, resisting what is normal when it hurts people, robbing them of their humanity. Pushing against unjust limits is what every social justice movement has done or will do, whether it's unfair laws, violent actions, or anything else that threatens life. The heartbreak here is that we know that by accepting unjust limits, people are hurt. Like when barriers are put in place so people of color cannot vote or participate in democracy, or like when brown people are profiled and kidnapped, taken away from their families and communities, or like when basic needs like food and healthcare and education are given or withheld based on a judgment about worth that is grounded in racism and classism. When limits are unjust, we are called to resist. We unite as a faith community of resistance to remind ourselves and others that we have a vision. We have a vision of a world that is loving, just, and healthy. A vision that may be different from the dominant culture of greed, racism, and oppression. And yet, consider our current federal administration, which is resisting every limit that has ever been set. Not just resisting the limits of government, but smashing them when they even notice that they exist at all. The founding fathers never conceived of a president who did not accept the limits of their office and who ignored the balance of powers that the founders so carefully put in place. Now, I can imagine that the leaders of the current U.S. government believe that their actions are in alignment with their values. And I observe the values revealed by their actions as greed for power and money, and cruelty to those that they find unworthy. It's likely that they believe they are justified in resisting norms and limits in order to create their envisioned world, a world order that is kept in place by threats and violence. So all of this leads me to conclude that our work for justice can't be only about resisting limits, or at least it can't be where we start. We have to start with values and covenant, shared values and the agreements we make about how we will be together. Values and covenants that we have discussed and negotiated and wrestled with and agreed upon. And then we have to live those values and covenants. This is the heart and soul of any group of people of any size. I think the values of the Unitarian Universalist Association are important here, values that we wrestled with for 4 years before adopting them in 2024 with a vote of delegates from member congregations like OUUC. Not everyone agreed with these values. There was discussion and debate and negotiation and wordsmithing and even more discussion. And often people disagreed because they wanted different ones, or they wanted words added, or they liked the 7 principles that existed better. But we adopted them, and now we are learning how to live them, asking the challenging questions of what it means to uphold these values in real life. This is hard work that we do in any group of people, whether it's a family or a faith community or a nation. We add levels of complexity as we add more people and cultures and norms. And yet here we are, a nation and a world that is trying to discern which limits need to be resisted and which need to be restored and respected. How do we honor values and agreements that already exist, or do we even honor them? How do we change the limits and ways of being that may no longer serve us? And how do we respond when someone pushes against or breaks through a limit that we have agreed on and people are hurt? There is sometimes heartbreak in accepting limits when we are in community, like when we may not love all of the agreements or values, but we agree to them, that we agree we can live with them so that we can be together. Or like when the limits that we love might need to be changed for the benefit of others and of the whole. And then there is the reality that some people will push or break the limits, sometimes hurting others in the process. And when this happens, we are invited to discern if the limit is just and how to respond if it is, and how to respond if it isn't. I believe our justice work now is to resist the limits that are being imposed by a government that is acting against our values. Our resistance now is based on the values we hold and the covenants we have for living together in community. And the heartbreak of limitations here is that sometimes people get hurt in the resistance. Our hearts have been broken open these past weeks with the killing by ICE agents of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. I've come to see that there is heartbreak in accepting limits, and there is heartbreak in resisting them. Perhaps this is the cost of being human.
Our second reading is an excerpt from How to Live in a Chaotic Climate by Laura Schmidt, author, climate activist, and co-founder of the Good Grief Network. Nothing is easy when it comes to death. When we let it in, it hurts, and it's disorienting. It's almost too much for our minds, souls, and bodies to take. And certainly, the dominant culture's focus on preventing aging does not make it easier for us to cope with the seasonality of our lives and eventual death. We have a real phobia concerning decay. These aspects of death are cast into the shadow and manifest in more harm being done. Unless we learn to see death as an invitation for deep presence and meaning, we will run from it, deny it, hide from it, or do almost anything else to avoid the pain and discomfort of it. Yet, deep down, we all know the truth. Everyone we know and love will die. We too will die. Death is a part of life. What would our lives look like if we accepted death and even honored it? How would it change our collective response to the climate crisis and the mass extinction event unfolding this very moment? How would embracing death alter our day-to-day lives on this warming planet?
Resisting Limits, Part 2. The author of our reading, Laura Schmidt, worked with others to create the Good Grief Network to help climate activists cope with the grief of what is unfolding across the planet human-caused loss of species and diversity, loss of forests and other natural habitats, and loss of people, homes, and businesses due to more extreme weather events like the winter storm that is sweeping across 2/3 of our country this weekend. Climate activists have always pushed against the idea that the Earth's resources are limitless, feeding the belief that growth can continue infinitely and forever. One premise of Schmidt's work is that the current climate crisis is due in large part to humanity's inability to accept the fact that we will die someday. The heartbreak of accepting the limit of our finitude keeps us from acknowledging that our current ways of living on this planet cannot continue. They are not sustainable and are harming us and all life. We live in a culture that denies illness, aging, and death, and the grief and loss that they bring. To avoid the heartbreak of accepting that there is a limit to our lives and all lives, we resist this truth. We push against illness, aging, and death in a consumer-driven culture that is happy to sell us the latest diet or miracle drug or exercise regime that will keep us alive longer. And subconsciously, what we hear is, "This will help you live forever. You will never die." There are billionaires in the United States who are using their wealth to try to buy immortality, and who are so afraid of death that they are willing to go to Mars to avoid the reality of their mortality on this earth. They are held up by many as models for success, and yet their greed for money and power is a direct response to their fear of facing their own mortality. We have the same resistance to the limits of our natural world. Our current government is telling us that we can continue to extract coal, gas, and oil from the earth, that there's plenty of fossil fuels to keep us going, living in what many of us know to be unsustainable ways. There are limits to the resources that our earth holds. We do many things to avoid the existential terror of these limits, which researchers call death anxiety. Acknowledging the climate crisis triggers our fear of death, so we tend to respond in predictable ways. We deny that climate change exists. We might acknowledge that climate change exists, but we deny that it is human-caused. And we downplay the effects of climate change, projecting any problems into the future where we won't be affected. This is the eco-distress and eco-grief that the Good Grief Network seeks to name and address. We try to avoid heartbreak by resisting the reality of any limits to our physical bodies and our physical world. And the effect is to cause suffering for ourselves and for other species. The Buddhist teachings tell us that there is pain in this world, inevitable and unavoidable pain. But it is our resistance to acknowledging and facing that inevitable pain that causes suffering, ours and the suffering that we inflict on others. This too is a part of being human. I've come to understand that there are at least two kinds of limits, those of nature and those of humans. The limits of nature are to be faced, accepted as much as we can, and not resisted. As Bill McKibben, an author and climate activist, says, physics and chemistry don't negotiate when it comes to climate change. We experience heartbreak by trying to resist those limits of nature. And I would offer that what might seem like natural limits, like climbing Mount Everest or going to the moon, Those aren't natural limits, they're limits of imagination. And we often try to make the true limits of nature into limits of imagination, thinking that ingenuity or science will save us, much to our detriment and our disappointment. So part of our work is to figure out which is which. And then there are the limits that are imposed by humans, the norms of our culture and the ways, the agreements that we create in order to exist in community. And when those limits serve us and the common good, we can and should accept them. And when those limits are unjust, we are called by our values to resist them. The heartbreak of accepting the existence of those unjust limits is awareness of the pain, loss, and grief caused by them, and the danger of resisting them. So given all of this, it is truly inexplicable that we rise each morning instead of burying our heads under bed covers, sewing them shut, that we keep on welcoming babies with bone-deep joy into this world, and that we don't disappear into the dark, but keep at least a part of ourselves in the light. The good news is that we humans have developed many ways to live and even thrive in this world. We learned some from our ancestors, and we have developed others as we've learned and grown. Gathering in community, including as a faith community, is one way that we cope. We find ways to connect with something that is bigger than ourselves, and we cultivate ways to calm our bodies and our minds so that we can listen carefully to our values and remember our agreements. The Good Grief Network offers 10 steps for coping, which are included in the book we're reading and discussing this year, How to Live in a Chaotic Climate. And while the book speaks of climate chaos, I think and we think these are great practices for coping with all of the chaos that we are in now, because it is a chaotic environment in many ways. The 10 steps include practices like being with uncertainty, facing our mortality, resting, grieving, finding gratitude, peace, and joy, and showing up. Just like all of those gathered in Minneapolis and across the nation, including here in Olympia, have shown up these past weeks. Each of these actions helps us resist the tendency to deny what is real, to resist the actions that put our world in further peril and our people in further peril, and to resist the pull to despair. We are invited to be like the people on the beach, throwing the starfish back into the sea. They were aware of the beautiful starfish who had died. They noticed the cycle of life and death. They saved those that they could, knowing that it was not everyone, but some. They created a community of throwers, the lineage of people who keep showing up and keep the memory of the perfect circle of compassion from life to death and back to life again. And so, dear ones, as we move through yet another challenging time, may we be like the community of throwers, people who acknowledge with compassion the heartbreak of accepting and resisting limits. May this be so. Let's take a moment for silent reflection.
I invite you to rise one more time in body and our spirit, and let's sing together hymn number 112, Do You Hear?
My dear ones, I am sending you love and light, and I feel yours in return. Thank you. We will extinguish our chalice today with words inspired by the American theologian Reinhold Niebuhr, and you might recognize these words. Spirit of life and love, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. May you go with joy, go with commitment, go with love.